You're not intentionally underpricing, but I bet you're pricing before you have enough information. Because when a client asks for a price, you're guessing about how they'll use it. So here are the 5 questions you need to ask before naming a price. If you're like most creatives, you state a price for a new project and then adjust it when you realize that a client needs more rights than you'd originally expected. So rather than naming a price up front and shifting it when you learn the intended usage, let's flip the order of your workflow to determine the usage first and then provide a price. We are going to walk through 5 questions. Each one handles a different aspect of usage. This isn't a script, but a checklist of topics to discuss with your client to make sure you're both on the same page. Each of the usage questions functions kind of like a lever or a seesaw. When a client needs broader usage, it's more valuable to them, but you are giving up how you can use it. And then the opposite is true. Narrower usage, less value, but you have more usage. You'll use the client's answers to these questions as inputs. The first question is, where will it be used? Here, you're looking to define the scope of use, what platforms, mediums, formats, and placements the work will be used on. Get specific. Otherwise, you'll end up arguing a year later what marketing use means. The more places the client can use it, the more value it has, and the more the client is willing to pay for it. If you want a jumping off point, try the following question. Can you walk me through where this will be used? The next question is for how long? Duration might be a set amount of time, an indefinite amount of time, or forever. One nuance that most creatives don't realize is that in an indefinite amount of time, it gives you more flexibility than forever. Just like usage, the longer the client can use it, the higher the value and the acceptable prices to them. A jumping off point here is, how long do you plan on using this? Moving on to the third question, we consider, where will it be used in the world? It's important to remember that if you're granting online rights and the client isn't requesting worldwide rights, that should raise some red flags. It's an opportunity to ask more questions. Once again, the larger the geographic area, the bigger the value to the client, as well as the cost. Your jumping off point can be, will this work be limited to a specific region, or will it be used around the world? Fourth, we consider whether the client will get exclusive rights. What's important to remember is exclusivity doesn't mean that you and the client are the only ones who can use it. It means the client is the only one that can use it. For example, if the client has exclusive website rights, unless you get a carve-out license, you are unable to use the client's materials on your website as part of your portfolio. Once again, where the client gains control over use, they gain in value and should also pay a premium for it because you are unable to use the work yourself. Your jumping off point here is, will this be exclusive or can I continue to use it? The final question you have to answer is, will they be using your work to generate revenue? There's a big difference in the value a client gets from work used for internal purposes versus the value they get from it being used for product sales. You might not have to ask this question directly because at this point in the conversation, you probably know if the client wants commercial use. But if you need to prompt the client, then you could start by saying something like, it sounds like you intend to use this internally only. Is that correct? Now, rather than throwing out a price you have to later increase or justify, you have questions that inform your pricing decisions. You also have variables you can play with when the client states that their budget doesn't align with your quoted pricing. You can offer to reduce the cost by modifying the usage. Say by capping a self-published book printing at 5,000 books rather than 10,000 books. Overall, this results in clearer conversations with clients because you can explain your reasoning rather than defending a number. You might think this all sounds good in theory, but my clients don't know the answers to these questions. And I agree that you should expect your clients to pause because they might not have experienced these questions before. Because we expect them to pause, I'd suggest having talking points prepped to explain how this process actually benefits them, allowing them to pay for the exact usage they need rather than an inflated price based on what you think they need. And if clients go quiet or push back when you ask these, that's exactly why I created Copy and Paste Legal Week. It gives you ready-to-use responses so you're not figuring out what to say in the moment. When you guide the client through this process, it also means you don't have to memorize a price, just evaluate inputs and levers. The next piece of the system involves turning their answers into language you can find in a contract, and that's what we'll be covering in the next video. Before you go, I'm curious, which of these questions do you currently ask your clients? Do any of these feel uncomfortable to ask? I'd love to help you get through any that make you hesitate.